early career researchers. It's all about that beautiful integration and supporting the next generation up. For those that don't know me, I'm Estelle. I'm the Education Manager at SmartCrete CRC, and I sit on the CIA NEXGen committee. So we're really, really excited to be doing this with the CIA and having the NEXGen support on this. It's just absolutely brilliant. So this is the first of the sessions that we're going to be doing, and then we're running it across Australia. So you are the very first ones to be doing this, which is brilliant. We have a really jam-packed agenda today, and then some nice networking afterwards. So yeah, just enjoy the experience for those that are joining us for the first time, and for those students that are here. Network, meet people, have conversations, make sure you soak up everything that's given to you today. So I'd like to introduce our keynote for today, Ali Kashani. Is this like no one's
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Estelle and SmartCrete CRC and CI NextGen for inviting me to this session. Just maybe I introduce myself first. I'm Ali Kashani. I'm Associate Professor at the School of Civil and Environmental Engineering at UNSW. Also wear a hat as co-chair of Cement and Concrete Working Group at MECLA, if you're familiar with MECLA. So before I start, maybe I'll just get to know better the audience. So how many PhD students do we have? Raise your hand. Okay, so majority PhD student. That's good. Actually, what I want to talk about is probably concerning you the most. Do we have any postdoc, early career researchers? You're a couple of them. And do we have people from industry? I guess I know a few familiar faces at the back.
they got told to come along.
Okay, excellent. So just for myself, I graduated from Melbourne University. I did my PhD there in 2014. I worked in industry for a year. And then after that, I did 3 years of the postdoc research fellow at Melbourne Uni. Follow up in 2019, I started my academic career at UNSW. Lecturer, senior lecturer, associate professor recently. So yeah, that's my journey. So today I have cheat sheet, which some of the things that I want to discuss. I guess the first point that I want to talk about is about the leadership. So because that's the theme of this session, saying that's the future concrete leaders. So leadership starts very small. So it's not a role. It's just kind of a behavior that you do. So any opportunities that comes, you just get volunteer, get into it. It's more than like what is assigned to you is in your day-to-day job. So it can be like being part of the committee, doing like extra volunteer work, step up, and doing something. But stepping up and doing that is key starting for the leadership, but also putting in your best and doing whatever you can in the role that you're taking is also very important, because that shows the reliability. So people can rely on you, and then it's going to be more work, more tasks that's going to be assigned to you, and that's how you just get into the leadership kind of position. So I think there are lots of opportunities for you. Even like coming to this session shows like your motivation to be the future leaders, and connecting to the leaders that you already have in the room and learn from them. It's going to be a lot of very good initiative. So if you're interested, there are lots of other opportunities. So for example, CI NextGen, you can talk to Estelle and the team. There are lots of opportunities that you can get involved with CIA, with the SmartCrete, Engineers Australia. There's lots of other networking opportunities for you to step in. But the first thing that you need to do is just raise your hands. Don't be shy. Just step in and help and offer help for the thing that you want to do. And then leadership starts from there. So the second point I want to talk about is about as Estelle mentioned, it's about academia and industry collaboration. And this is the tough one, yeah? So as Sorn just said that, I mean, this is probably one of the toughest tasks to do, because one of the things that is very important for the industry academic collaboration is just having a common language. And sometimes this common language is kind of gets missing. So when I started, I mean, during my PhD, obviously, I didn't have much kind of industry exposure, but when I started my postdoc and also working industry, so just getting to know what industry wants is very important. And I used to go and say, this is my research, that's what I'm doing. From my perspective, this is kind of, for me, it's brilliant, the thing that I'm doing. But from the industry perspective, only the brilliant research, even like you're just writing papers for the top journals, it is important, but you need to translate it to industry, something that can be can be seen, can be tangible, and the outcome of that can be used for the industry. So they're looking for the relevance and outcome, so what they can get from out of this research for the industry. The other thing is that you need to focus on the mutual benefit. So especially as an early career researcher, so when you talk to industry, so just don't only talk about what I want to get. So if you want to, have a grant support from the industry, it's not just I want to get the grant, can you support me to get the grant? So they might say that, okay, what is it for them? And if you cannot answer this question, what is it for them, then the chance is high that you're not going to get supported by the industry. So you need to look at the mutual benefit, what is for them, what problem that you're solving, and also understanding the problems, what are the pain points in industry. If you sit in your office just doing the research, so you might know the literature, but you don't actually know what is happening in industry, what are the key pain points, what are the areas that you can actually contribute with your research, or pivot your research in the area that can help industry. This is also very important. And how you can get that? Obviously attending events like that, which you can kind of network. Just go and have a chat with our beautiful industry people, as you can see in the chat. They're very friendly, don't be shy. Just go talk about your research, talk about what they're doing, what are the challenges currently in the industry, and that's how you get started. On the other hand, I also want to just use this event to talk to our brilliant industry people. I think that industry also should kind of understand what is the drivers in academia as well. I mean, you probably know that in academia, the publication and the knowledge generation is one of the things that needs to be done in order for the universities to survive. Good or bad, I cannot comment on that, but it is what it is. So, trying to also help industry to understand that is one of the drivers, if you have a co-funded industry PhD or something like that, so for them to understand that what you need to do as part of your thesis in a publication, etc., that is also important. The other thing for the researchers, and I think for all of us, is that when you work, for example, on a paper, things like that, so, or on the research in general, or even like your PhD, so you have timelines, but your timelines, for example, for PhD is 3.5 years. So you have plenty of times. For industry is short focus most of the time. So you need to deliver things in a very short period of time. So you need to have a very good time management, and you need to deliver the thing that has been kind of expected from you. So just working on the timelines, the cost, and what the impact of the thing that you're doing is very important. So how do you get into that collaboration? I mean, academia industry collaboration, but also collaboration with other academics in general. It's all about networking. So I always say to my PhD students that networking is the key. So if you don't have a good networking, it's always, you cannot, you will continue your career journey, but if you want to be successful in your career journey, you need to have a good network around you. So, and networking is not about like, between jobs, or I'm going to finish my PhD, so let's go networking so I can find few people and find a job. So networking starts much earlier than that, okay? So, and it's not something transactional. So one thing that I kind of understood, especially in Australian context, that here networking and kind of working with people is not transactional. It's not something like I do something for you, do something for me. It's just like building the relationship, it's just like a friendship, but it's just, kind of a work scope. So, and it takes time. So you need to start it, you need to talk about it. I'll give you like a very bad example of networking. So something that happened to me like a couple of years ago. So I was in a similar event like this, and I was approached by someone, and we're talking about the research that that person is doing, I'm doing, etc. And we found some common interests, like in terms of the research. And the conversation was very good, and I was pleased to kind of know that person. And all of a sudden, she asked me, do you have any postdoc opportunities in your group? And obviously, I didn't have any postdoc opportunities. And I said, no, sorry, I don't have any postdoc opportunities. And guess what? She walked away.
No, that's it. No point talking.
So that's a no-no. So this is something that also, as I said, don't kind of in your mind. It's okay if you want to ask someone something, but it's not just like only for the aim of getting something from someone just to start networking. That probably is not a good idea. Yeah, and you can offer help. Like, it's not just all asking people when you do networking. You can also do something for them and just build a relationship. And trust me that the people that you have a very good relationship that you build over the years and years, those are the people that's gonna help you. Maybe not now, but you can see like, a few years from now, those people can come and help you in a way that you didn't expect that. Okay, so let's talk about our PhD students here. Do we have any final year PhD students here? Yeah, we have you. Okay, so I know that how tough you're doing at the moment. It's always challenging to finish your PhD, the burden of like writing your thesis, you need to have publications, etc., etc. Your scholarship is gonna end soon, so you need to, you're gonna do all these things, your scholarship is gonna end, so you might have some financial issues, etc. It's very tough. I've been there, I understand you, I know that's how tough it is. But something that is very common, this is for everyone, during the PhD. And so don't worry if you cannot land your perfect job just after graduation. It might take months, it might take years. I've been without a job like for a few months after I graduated from my PhD. It is very tough, but I'm sure that you can pass that. But I have a few tips for you, especially for those of you just started PhD or in the first year or second year of PhD. That's the thing that you can do. So it's about building the skills, okay? When I do interview my PhD student, PhD candidates, not the first, but maybe one of the questions that I ask, what do you want to do after completion of your PhD? And this is very important for you to know from now, what do you want to do after finishing your PhD? If you don't have a good answer for that, I would ask you to just think about it more, because that's how you need to use the time that you have. It's not just about doing your research and thesis, also building the skills that you can use after graduation. So if you want to go to industry, So like you need to know what kind of skills you need for the particular industry that you want to then build up those skills. If you want to go to academia, what the skills you need to have. So don't only focus on the thesis and publication. It's about also other side of like transferable skills that you can learn. So a couple of examples, like communication skills, very important. 3-minute thesis is super important. I mean, my PhD student can say like, how I'm kind of emphasizing that they need to participate like every year. And the reason for the 3-minute thesis, so for some of you that you're not familiar with that, is just PhD students just presenting their thesis in only 3 minutes to the audience, and there's like a kind of competition. So why is that important? Because when you meet someone, they don't have like half an hour for you to just say like, what's your research about? So if you can, like in a very short amount of time, within 3 minutes, you can present your research to someone. And that is a very good start of networking. And if you can present it in a way that is going to be interesting, that is even better, because they can kind of, communicate with you. And also it shows like how you can present your work. And that skills can be used if you want to, let's say if you want to be academic, you want to apply for the grants, or even in industry when you want to pitch an idea, etc. This is a key skills that you can learn and you can use it. So like learning softwares related to your project or any other software, like standards. So if you're working, for example, in the concreting research, and you want to continue to be in this field, if you don't have a good grasp of the standards, that's going to be issue, because then you're going to struggle later. So I definitely recommend you to just have a good, better grasp of the standard. Data analysis. So it can be like machine learning or any other kind of data analysis or visualization. It can also help you a lot. And on top of that, soft skills, teamwork, leadership that I mentioned, project management. So PhD is a project, and you are the project manager of your PhD. So it's a 3.5 years kind of project. So in that you can develop the skills like how to follow, have a Gantt chart, those kind of things. All these skills. Then later you can put it in your CV. It's a PhD project manager. Yeah. But not like that, but actually you can practice it and you can use it later. One last thing is the entrepreneurship. Maybe you don't want to go to academia, maybe you don't want to go to industry, you want to build up your own kind of company. So if you want to do that, just learn the way of the entrepreneurship and just pivot your research in a way that develop a product and service that you can build a company around that when you're graduating from PhD. So just finish my talk by just saying that the leadership, collaboration, and the careers are built through small actions taken early. Conversation started before you need them, and skills developed alongside your research. The future leaders are already in this room. They are the ones who chosen to step up. Thank you very much.
That was amazing, Ali. Thank you so much. I feel pretty inspired by that, and I'm not doing my PhD. One of the things that you talked about, and I could literally dissect that keynote because there were so many good points, but the one thing that I think that is really important for us to acknowledge, and the reason why we're doing this event, is you talked about networking, and I actually think it comes back to community. And I think the great thing that this industry does, and while I've worked in it, is the willingness to actually support, and you can reach out, and there is a real sense of community here. And I think for those that are kind of coming into it, those completing their PhD, it's really good to know that this is such a supportive space and these people are here for you. So yeah, just make sure you remember that and don't feel shy to work on that network. We're going to move into the panel conversation. I also realized I started a little bit earlier than expected because I think I was just eager to start. But we're going to go into the panel session now. So we then have more time for networking and chatting and all the fun stuff. This is fun too. So I'll introduce our guests. I just looked at the chairs as well. We're very separate. So no one's sitting in the front row. So I might actually, as we come up, I might move our chairs a little bit more together. I'd like to introduce our speakers today. Sorn Vimonsatit from Macquarie University. We have Dena from Sydney Water. Thank you, David. We have Medhi Robati from Lendlease, who is also our host. So extra applause. Thank you, Medhi. And Emily Canda from UTS. Yeah. I want to move our chairs a little bit closer somehow. Back slightly. That way we're not like yelling across each other. Yeah. So this is logistics that I should have picked before. Thank you. Thanks, Medhi. Another round of applause for our panelists. Okay, so after Ali's great keynote, I'm sure there's lots that we have to talk about. Before we jump into it, can you just give us a little bit, each of you talk about your current role, what you're doing, and then we can jump in. Sorn, do you want to start?
Yes. Thank you very much. Very good to be here. Thank you very much for organizing this event. So glad, always happy to talk to people, especially the young talents. Okay. Yeah. My name is Sorn. I'm from Macquarie University. At the moment, I'm teaching and research academic associate professor. I'm also the lead of civil engineering program. I'm having a few projects with SmartCrete CRC, and then very, very happy to be working on that.
Nice plug. Thank you, Sorn. Dena.
Hi, I'm Dena Pham. I'm the Manager of Research and Development in Sydney Water, also Adjunct Associate Professor at the Institute for Sustainable Futures. So really excited about this discussion around the engagement between research and industry.
Thank you. Medhi.
Hi, Medhi Robati, Technical Manager at Lendlease, and I look after the structure as well as the embodied carbon. So I can talk about it more detail later on.
Yes,
Yeah.
we will. Emily.
Hi, I'm Emily Canda. What a great panel, my God, fantastic. I'm a lecturer with UTS. I've just been recently made lecturer coming from industry, so not too much to speak about this position yet so far.
Oh, congratulations. So one of the things we hammer home about a lot, and Dena, we've discussed it as well in our chats, is how careers aren't linear and how everyone expects that you've got to do this and then do this and do this stage to get here. Can you talk to us all a little bit about, and I'll go around again, a little bit about your career journeys and how you ended up to where you are? Emily, I might start with you.
Okay.
Going the other way.
Thank
All
you.
right. So I actually started as a concrete pumper as a teenager.
Ooh.
Yeah, which is a bit bizarre. And then after that, I actually went in to do drafting. I don't know if anyone knows about drafting at all. And then I went and did uni, and essentially I started construction before I graduated uni. So I was a site engineer in my second year of uni, with a few different companies anyway. And so I actually stayed in industry for a long time until I actually started my PhD. So I think it was actually a phone call from a mentor who called me up and said, hey, look, I've actually seen a scholarship for a PhD opportunity. And we were just about to set into COVID. So she said, I think you should apply. I don't know where it's going to go, but apply and see where it takes you. And so I actually did apply and ended up getting the scholarship, which was great. But it also meant that I had to juggle both my full-time role in project management and a full-time PhD. So that was really, really bizarre. And it's funny, I spoke to a lot of my mentors, and even some of them had said that doing a PhD would actually set my career backwards because I was in this pathway to wanting to become a project director. And so that was a bit of a spiraling moment, I guess you could say. So I did my PhD, I completed, and I went back into industry with CPB on the Warringah Freeway. And that was a fantastic project, is a fantastic project. And when I graduated my PhD, the next day I just went to work, and that was kind of it. And so my research in concrete didn't really come up too much in my working experience. When there was, for instance, facial cracks in the slab, or they were doing a massive pour, they would call me, and I'd just say, just make sure you water it, it'll be fine. Like there's nothing, there's nothing you have to worry about too much, whatnot. Or in concrete design, I get caught a little bit. But other than that, my research and my industry crew were actually quite separate, very, very separate. And yeah, and then so eventually I had come back into academia. I think the 4 a.m. calls in the morning and 3 a.m. calls in the morning got a little bit too much.
Yeah.
Being on site as a PM, especially when you're managing about a team of 50 to 80 contractors. So yes, it's quite nice, but there's different obstacles in both academia and industry. So I think each one industry thinks academia is easier and academics think that industry is easier. So yeah, and that's a bit of my story.
I think you kind of capture it though, because it is, they are quite different in a lot of ways, but there is actually some alignment, and it's about just making sure that alignment actually comes together, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That is absolutely fascinating, and I want to deconstruct that a little bit more, but I'm going to go down the line. Medhi, can you talk to us a little bit about your career? I know you've said it hasn't been, the traditional pathway.
Yeah, sure. I started as a site engineer back home in Iran, Tehran, and then I decided, it's not for me. I just want to be a structural engineer. I jumped into the consultancy back home, and I said, no, it's not for me either. So I decided to do a master's degree in Australia. So I did my master's. I really like this topic. I'm going to do PhD, and I didn't know set of words I shouldn't use when I write my proposal because of my nationality. And then my PhD becomes entitled to the sanction, say you're not allowed to do this topic. And so, okay, so I just worked. So I just worked for 1 year. And then I came across the idea of sustainability and said, actually I like that. So I started doing like how I can combine structural design and sustainability. So I did my PhD and said, okay, I want to travel. But I said, UNSW has a position with CRC. I just applied for it and then backpacking in Europe. Literally, I had an interview like 2 a.m. in Europe, and I said, I don't get a job. That's all right. I continue my travel. I said, postdoc with multiplex and UNSW, come back. So I did my journey and said, okay, actually, I want to do a startup. I started my startup, carbon value engineering. Then I went back to Europe, and then I applied for another job as a lecturer in Adelaide. So I got that job and then moved back to Adelaide. And actually, I was working 2 years as a lecturer. One day I received a message on my LinkedIn. It said, we have a certain position. Are you interested in? I said, that's a spam. I didn't reply, to be honest. A called friend of mine and said, did you put my name down? I said, no, I didn't. Actually, that was a lady from talent acquisition of Lendlease. And I just replied for interview during the COVID. I couldn't travel. So give it a try. And now I'm here. So that's why just life too short. Do whatever you like to do, and then you don't know what's gonna happen.
And have a good LinkedIn profile.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't like. Actually, I had that startup, carbon value engineering. I think pretty much that helped the LinkedIn algorithm. I don't know,
Right,
but
okay.
I was like,
Play to the algorithm.
Yeah.
See, there's lessons everywhere.
Yeah.
Thanks, Medhi. Dena.
I might go back to my undergraduate degree because that drove me into my PhD. I went straight from my undergraduate to a PhD, but my background's design, industrial design engineering, in the engineering faculty. And I got caught up in a consultancy project to look at designing dry sanitation for an eco village in South Africa. And the relationship between this small business and myself and an academic led to some questions that fed into a PhD, which was sort of, I was invited to do a PhD after I met these three people together. So that idea of having networks, as Ali was talking about, was so important to me. And because I didn't come and do even my undergraduate degree until my late 20s, 30. So I had a business before that. So it's very used to working across different disciplines and different sort of small business networks. So the familiarity with networking really broadly was really important for me to move into a PhD. I ended up doing a PhD in the sanitation space, but looking at systems thinking. How do you transition from existing systems of sanitation and water management to radically different systems of water and wastewater management? So it was an invite PhD. So I really encourage you to network quite broadly. I was never thinking of doing a PhD after my undergraduate degree. I thought I would never go to follow anything to do with university after I finished, but just meeting the right people at the right time meant that I moved into a PhD position, but interesting enough within a consultancy. So I worked in the Institute for Sustainable Futures at UTS, which is a self-funded consultancy within the university, which means the idea of providing, not just academic papers and bringing in funds and networking, but also meeting those other KPIs. So making sure you're developing projects at the same time as your academic research. So I think that sort of model that crosses industry, government and academia is really good way to engage academics in really real life world problems. So I was working with water utilities for my PhD. And then moved into a postdoc that expanded that research in an international space. So worked across water utilities in Europe, as well as the Australian water utilities, and was a research director there for about 15 years or so, before COVID, when everything got thrown up in the air, and then took a break, and then came after travelling. I think travelling is really important to clear your mind and figure out what you want to do. So I went to the Middle East to catch up with my family for a year, and then came back and moved into a government position. And because I'd worked across industry and government and academia in the research space, came into the Greater Cities Commission to set up a research unit with others, with people that actually had networked on my projects before I moved into this position. So I was there for a couple of years, a year or so, before eventually coming to Sydney Water, managing research and innovation space in Sydney Water.
Amazing. Thank you. Sorn.
Wow. Well, my story is probably similar in the sense like with the three panel here. A mix between industry and academia. Since I graduated, well, as a woman, you would imagine like how many times I got asked why civil engineering, a woman, you know what I mean? Unbelievable. I mean, I want to be. Why do you choose civil engineering? You're a woman, you know what I mean? Anyway, but I was fascinated by always until now, like how buildings stand, how people can build such a huge structure, building roads and dams and so many things. That's why after graduate, I immediately went to industry, to be part of it, because I know that I haven't learned anything. I haven't learned enough. Always curious to learn more about how people do things like in real life, like, build from scratch, and excavation, foundation. It was always, fascinating to me. Until now, I still feel that. And that's why when I had the opportunity to do my postgrad degree, education, always one of my passion as well, to go further into the study, always curious to learn.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to learn more because I never think I know enough, basically. So I want to learn more. I did my master. Okay, again, I went back to industry, work. Then PhD scholarship came. Okay, why not? Another one, why not? Okay, went to academy again, finished my PhD. At that time, the construction industry in my home country was booming like mad. So I went after PhD, that's it. Industry forever, you know what I mean? Always drawn to the industry, so work. And then, fair enough, I got very good job. I work on mostly high rises, design and construction, and I really enjoy the one. Again, I don't know there was planned or unplanned or whatever it is. Then this opportunity came in Australia to do teaching or university job. Then okay, apply. Why not? Just try. No harm. Then I just managed to get it. Okay, let's try. Moved from Asia to Australia. That was like almost 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And I thought I got enough at that time. I had enough knowledge from the industry and obviously the knowledge from learning from education. I thought I had enough knowledge to deliver or to teach students properly. That's what I wanted to do. I felt confident that I would be able to teach someone because I have the knowledge of both the theory and practices. And that's why I took the job and took another challenge. And I thought I could be semi-retired in the academia. I was wrong completely. Completely wrong. Academia is a different world to industry. It's totally different world. You don't, even you go back after 6 o'clock, you still have to think about, you still have to do some work. Even Saturday and Sunday, you never stop. Christmas holiday, New Year holiday, that you have deadline for grant application. You never stop. And my family doesn't understand. And they thought that I'm the work alcoholic. I said, no, I'm not. I'm not even a good student. I just very hard. But I had to do what I had to do. It's our role to do it. You know what I mean? So anyway, that's why I ended up here. And nearly 20 years, I'm still here. And then Sydney drew me because of my daughter. Again, when I moved to academia, it was a big challenge for me. Industry academia, it's just totally different. And I had to start from scratch. And I was not young. I had to start from scratch. Okay, I built up. Okay, I managed to do it. Okay, happy. You know, I can just sit back. And then my daughters, they moved here. One of them studied, one of them worked. So then, and they were fighting like mad. Okay, I must do something, otherwise they continue fighting. Okay, then this opportunity came, Bruce Bay and the Macquarie University and all that. So okay, why not try to apply and see whether I can come back and help like split them up. So I managed to get a job at Macquarie University. Okay, why not start from scratch again, hard work. Okay, but I succeed in one thing. My daughter stopped fighting. You know why? Because both of them came up and fought with me.
Redirected.
But anyway, that's my story. I had a lot more to talk about, but
I'm sure we'll be able to uncover more. I think you all have obviously had great work within both industry and academia. You're almost like our topic today, personified. What are some common misconceptions though? Sorn, you just triggered a thought in my head. What are the common misconceptions between industry and academia? Now working on both sides, what are the misconceptions? I suppose, Dena, you're nodding your head, so yeah, tell us.
That's a really good question.
okay. Misconception.
Yeah, when you said you moved into academia, that you thought it was going to be a little bit more relaxed. Yeah. Talk to us about that, and where is this kind of barrier, and how can we make sure that we're aligning the misconceptions, I suppose, from either side?
I guess I'm not sure whether we should use the words misconception or perception or whatever it is, but I think the main problem is just the lack of that connectivity between industry and academia. I think, and also maybe the lack of or unawareness of what each other is doing. You know what I mean? Academia, okay, I just look at some, what is going on, and then theory, practice, and this is what you have to do. Whereas that's why we focus on certain things that our goal is different. Okay. Whereas industry, they focus on the very practical kind of the approach and hands-on things, and make things work, make things done and things like that. But it doesn't mean that we don't understand each other. The only thing that we don't communicate enough to each other, and that's why that's the misconception or whatever it is. Because and as I grew from from when I just finished until now, I could see that we are moving towards a very good kind of alignment. You know what I mean? That I think we are merging towards each other more now than before. Maybe slowly, but it's happening. Especially with SmartCrete CRC, project.
Shameless plug.
CRC, CRC project excellent, isn't it? It's just to merge the academia and industry. So I see that misconception is reducing because now we communicate more. Whether or not we can collaborate is another story, but at least we connect more, and we have this kind of platform to connect.
Yeah, absolutely. Dena, you were nodding your head, so...
Yeah, I think that the idea that we're completely separate is really a misconception because in my team, I have 3 people with PhDs, someone a postdoc, someone from CSIRO who manages innovation. We're not actually separate, even in the skills that we have and the knowledge that we have. And it's interesting to watch because I've been across industry and government for so long to see universities now move towards that idea of having impact and collaboration as your KPIs. We really need to make sure everyone's working on projects that have some relevance to industry. I think the thing that's missing in that relationship between academics and industry is that you're not generally sending proposals that understand the challenges of the business that you're proposing. So I get 10 proposals a week, from lots of different people, and a lot of them don't actually have a really clear understanding of the challenges of Sydney Water and the strategy, objectives, what we're aiming to do. You can find that on our website. The priorities are internal, and we have business owners that have their own individual challenges, but even just being very clear about how do you think your research can support or improve the challenges the business has. That's very basic way of thinking about when you're pitching proposals to industry to understand how that works. Yeah, but I think when you start to suggest that industry and academia are very separate, you don't really understand how it's happening inside businesses like Sydney Water. We've just started reigniting the Sydney Water Research Network, which is 5 universities, Macquarie, we're part of SmartCrete, of course, but Macquarie and Sydney, UTS and UNSW. I hope I didn't miss out any. Hang on, that's 4. Yeah, Macquarie. And that network is to really start to think about how do we bring on PhDs and postdocs into projects, different models of how students might work with Sydney Water. We've developed a new sort of internship program where students will work exactly as you're saying. At the end of your PhD, you might have 3 to 6 months. You haven't moved into your next job yet, but we have challenges that we want answered in an academic sense. So putting out those sort of calls and briefs to universities. We also have our own staff doing PhDs part-time, PhDs, and there's lots of co-funding of those sort of models of PhDs and postdocs that I think really then bring academic and industry knowledge together in a way that hasn't happened before. So there's lots of different ways, I think. There's that crossover between those two sectors that it's important.
Yeah, and I think, sorry, Medhi,
No.
you go. I was going to say, I think the appetite for it is increasing as well. I think Concrete 25, if anyone was lucky enough to go to that conference, I think those are great examples of where we're actually doing this great integration work as well, even if it's not internally within organisations, be able to meet up and actually have those conversations and everyone's engaged and giving feedback and everything else. So, yeah, I think forums like this and like Concrete 25 and that are actually great to keep those conversations going and expanding that network. I want to talk, Emily. Sorry, did you have a thought on that, Medhi?
Oh, no, pretty much for each academic and industry. Because at the moment we are dealing with some problem which we didn't have it before.
Yeah.
We need a new method, new way of thinking, new even mathematical model as well as the data go to the suppliers and we need this. Do you have it? So industry probably doesn't have those skills. We need the academic to help us to deliver that task. However, sometimes in industry, you say we don't have a pleasure of time.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we have a few $1 million project need to be done in 1 month. So we need to have a fast solution with a 70% accuracy as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But I think you're right as well. I think the priority of the industry is changing as well. If we're looking around innovation, sustainability, and obviously you know all about sustainability, and I know you do as well. I know you're all kind of within it, but you're right. The priorities are changing too. So we're seeing a different kind of collaboration, I suppose. I want to quickly talk to you about concrete pumping. A, how did you get into that? And then B, I want to talk about transferable skills. What did you learn within that you think ultimately got you to where you are now?
I
Or
think
was there transferable skills?
Oh, absolutely. I think so. I got into concrete pumping because my dad actually owned a concrete pumping business in Sydney, and they're always short a few linemen, and I've always said, yeah, always. So I reckon I would have been about 3 inches taller if I didn't have to carry a hose on me, to be honest. I really do think that. Transferable skills. I think when I went onto site, a lot of, obviously everyone gets quite scared because you're a young female and going on site. I was at the Berrimah Cement Works. I don't know if anyone knows what that is. but there's no one there that's like they had a female restroom, but they just the boys used it to do other things anyway. And so everyone was quite worried for me and said, you know, are you going to be okay on site? You'll be fine. I said, oh, I'll be fine. And as soon as I rock up to Priest, I used to smoke. I grab a cigarette. I was like, all right, this is what we're going to do. You got your swims, you got everything. And I think everyone's quite shocked. But when you work on site in construction, it's not about having thick skin, but it's about going with the flow more so. Of course, you're going to hear things that you probably shouldn't hear or you might disagree with. But when you're on a project or just trying to get something done or just trying to go home, it's surprising how much you're willing to just compromise, to be honest. But with concrete pumping, I learned three things. Never say yes to screeding. Yep, that's one. Never say yes to screeding. Secondly, always push back. I've met a lot of academics now when I have meetings with them, especially when it comes to budget. And because a lot of our executives come from industry, they'll say, I don't think that's a good idea. And I see a lot of academics say, okay, whatever you think. But I'm like, no, you have to push back.
Yeah.
So I think that's the second thing is pushing back. The third, I don't know now that I'm thinking about it. Safety is key, definitely. I think that's something that I've taken with me going through every position that I've been in. I've seen people almost die too many times, to be completely honest, and even going into research. You know, being in academia, it's not necessarily about physical harm, but now it's about mental harm. But definitely safety is something that's come with me from concrete pumping.
But also, I guess the safety then also leads into engineering, right?
Yes.
Because you're building ultimately for safety.
Yes.
Yeah. The other thing I want to ask you just quickly, sorry, I don't want to focus too much on this, but I'm just fascinated. How much has it given you an awareness of the industry from, I guess, that point of view to then designing and becoming an engineer from the other end? Like, how much has that made you appreciate what they're doing on site versus when you're like designing or coming up with materials and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So
not necessarily you, but engineers in general, you know?
I think when you see the concrete mix design, which I'm sure all of you guys have seen, it's all numbers, right? So you're kind of looking at it and you're like, oh, this will make sense. But on site and at the batch plant, they're two very different stories. So I think I've learned that you have to have a good relationship with the batcher. So for instance, if it's rained the day before and you're testing a new material, has the sand been out? Is it dry enough? Have you tried this? Because a lot of the time as well, the truck drivers control the strength. No one knows this. You could design the best concrete in the world, but that driver who doesn't know how to read or even write properly is the one who's holding the hose and is the expert making sure that workability can actually work on site. So the idea is that, especially within research, we see researchers, they make the most amazing designs. They test in the perfect conditions in the lab, and then it doesn't work on site. And you're like, what's going on? But it's the collaboration between industry and research to actually go to the batch plant, ask them what the conditions were the day before, ask them what quarry materials they're from, because these all make a little difference. I mean, when we were concrete pumping, if we were to block fill and it was at 80 slump, someone was getting ripped off. Someone's head was getting ripped off because that's a multi-million-dollar machinery that you're putting dry concrete into. Yeah. So it's just, there needs to be a bit more communication. And I think with my PhD, we did really well. I saw Jason earlier. We did really well with industry, with academia and industry. But that was because we were able to get close with the people. So at the end of the day, it's really about the people when it comes to implementing these designs.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Just on the topic of transferable skills, I kind of want to ask all of you about, I guess, what are the most crucial skills that you've learned in your career that you think have benefited you the most? Maybe Medhi, I'll start with you.
Don't say no. If you're willing, take a challenge. You may fail 1, 2, but the third time you get an answer. Quick example, like 3 years ago, we had to put Lendlease as an absolute target by 2040, which is a scope 1, 2, and 3 no offset. So we have to develop the tool internally because we couldn't purchase the tool, wasn't outside. So literally early morning, we had a meeting with consultant in Sydney. Afternoon, I had a meeting with them in overseas, other office. Because I said I can't do it, but I didn't know how I do it. So literally 10 to 12 hours a day. But at the end of the day, we deliver a tool. Now some of the software companies are going to come and purchase that tool from us. So don't afraid to say no. Say yes. You're going to fail, but you're going to do it. So yeah, just say yes.
Dena?
I really love what you said, Emily, because it just made me realise the thing that I think is really important is making sure you have multiple perspectives of the same problem. A really good example when you're talking came to mind was when I was working on putting in an alternative sanitation system, and no one had spoken to the cleaners. So everyone knew how to put in a system, the pipe work, the pumping mechanisms, the water quality testing, the nutrient recovery and reuse, but no one actually talked to the maintenance people and the cleaners. And what they found out was there was a huge Asian population that was standing on toilets and breaking 20 toilets a week.
Oh, wow.
And so that was at $150 each. So if you, and we should have put in different types of toilets. So yeah, it's really fascinating when you are very tech focused and rather than thinking about the whole system and how that technology fits within the system and who is going to be touching that system somehow, whether it's the cleaners, maintenance people, managers. And sometimes you're not thinking about that when you're doing research. It's very disciplinary focused, only thinking about technology without how it's going to be implemented. Yeah. So systems thinking and being curious what those other people are in the system, I think. Yeah.
Sorn? Transferable skills?
I'm trying to think. Well, I think it's the ability to work with others. I think that's very important. Teamwork. You can't do anything alone. In a company or in academia or industry. Ability to work with people. And I think somebody mentioned the communication is a key skill. For sure, in everything Ali mentioned that Ali covered a lot of things. Actually, I prepared for this talk. Ali covered everything.
I agree.
anyway, so yeah, I think being in you can work as a team. You can work individually, independently is very key as well, and you can self-direct. That is very key. So a lot of all these things that you need to have. Okay, so and that can happen not only by knowing what you do. You also need to know what others do. You need to understand the business. You need to understand the organization. You need to understand the structure. You need to understand what matters to the organization. Who is who? You know what I mean? So that's important.
Yeah.
And that's critical.
Yeah, sorry, so I'm going to say
Sorry.
No, I think as well, sorry, Ali, I know we keep coming back to you. Even though Ali's kind of said a lot of it, we've all got different perspectives, I'm sure. How hard is that translation of communication and how important is it, I suppose, in the work that you do? Dena, I might start, you might jump around.
Yeah, so my background is not concrete. Even though I'm managing the SmartCrete sort of relationship at the Sydney Water. So then you need to be able to speak multiple languages, not ethnic languages, but can you speak across water, wastewater management, construction, asset management, digital, finance. I don't need to be an expert in all of those, but at least you should be able to have enough knowledge to be able to speak a language that people understand, or at least people can engage with. I think, that's been probably my biggest challenge, because I'm not from a lot of the industries that I'm working with, because there's lots of projects that cross areas that I have no background or expertise in. But yeah, I think that also if you're thinking in systems, then you should be able to at least communicate in a way where everyone in that system can understand their role in that system and how you're going to work together with each other. And I think that's really challenging. We talk about the key skills. Ali again, I think the keynote was spot on. Like communication is one sort of big sort of issue to think about, but communicating in lots of different ways, whether it's visually, across disciplines, across sectors. We also work on projects across departments. And so everyone needs to understand what agendas each other have. Are we communicating each other's values? What do we expect to have in the end? That's quite a skill. I'm not saying I'm great at it, but it's something that I think people need to learn how to do. If you're going to cross industry and academia as well, in particular.
That is, communication is not just about knowing what to say or convey in all forms that Dena mentioned. It's also knowing when to listen
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Works both ways.
Works both
Yeah.
ways. And also, it's not just about knowing the language. You know what I mean? It's also about how to make it effective. You know what I mean? Like I think Ali mentioned about 3 minute thing, right? You know, you have to know who you are talking to, and then not just use the same language. Somebody say common language. You say common language as well. Yeah. So you have to change the way you talk. Like when you talk to students, you have to change a little bit. You talk to professionals, you talk to change a little bit. So that's all about effective communication.
Hmm. And I think as someone that never worked in the concrete industry until 5 years ago, and now I'm obsessed, I think the biggest thing is actually, you've touched on it before, Dena, about firstly, listening, but I think as well, one of the things we touched on in the student session before was actually understanding who you're talking to and what the priorities are of that person. And that's a big part of communication. And it's kind of what you said, not what's in it for me, but what can I do to help you? And I think that's a really key thing, not just with networking, but with communication as well. It's like, how can we solve this together? It's not just me. It's understanding what the priorities are and how we get to that end goal.
Yeah, totally. And I think because I can only speak from Sydney Water's perspective, the business is challenge driven. So we're only doing research and investing in research that fixes the challenges that the business has, and not just research as a proof of concept, but how do you then deploy it? So when you're talking about how do you move from research outcomes to deployment, you need to be thinking about that in the proposal stage, because we need to deploy it, otherwise we won't invest in it. And I think that might sometimes get missed in the academic sort of proposal writing stage, that the business should be driving the questions, even collaboratively with academics. So you're jointly developing questions that, you get something out of, but actually should be driven by the business. But with the view that ultimately it has to, be deployed as new technology or new policy or recommendations for the business. It has to be those sort of outcomes.
Yeah. Before we kind of wrap up, Emily, I want to just ask you, I know you're working across LC3s, doing a lot of work in that space. To all of you, I suppose, how critical is this collaboration in terms of innovation, sustainability, and priorities?
Not on
the spot. But I guess LC3 is obviously not super new, but something like, how do you make sure that we're moving in the right ways? And with all these new, there's so many alternatives now.
I think it's about constantly innovating. We're, as academics and even as industry, we're always standing on the shoulders of giants, right? So it's not necessarily that we're going to come up with one solution straight away, but it's constantly building on each other's solutions. And that takes sometimes putting your ego to the side. I know there's sometimes too many egos in the room when you're in some meetings. And so, so I think in order to move forward, especially with LC3 as well, as actually saying, okay, you know what, let's give this a go. Depending on if you have time and money, whatnot, I think that will just help us move forward. But I'm sorry, before we close as well, I did want to say, because this is PhD students, so I want that here. I know you're probably wondering if it's industry or academia that you're wanting to go into. It's a big question. I think everyone comes to that stage in their PhD.
Right.
But coming to what everyone else has said, it's really about opportunity, to be honest. Like, I could sit here all day and say, pick a company that aligns with your values and go with them. But Sydney infrastructure has dried up considerably, right? The East Coast has dried up considerably as well. So it's about networking, obviously, and understanding the opportunities, but also not being so determined to find work in your research. Your research is so niche. Even my lecturing position, I didn't actually get that through my concrete work. I got that through my project management work. So it's very different, but it's always good to try and put your feelers out there and perfect your craft respectively, and then move forward as well. But if you have any questions about which one, I can't recommend one or the other, to be honest. They both are brilliant in their own respective ways, but it's really up to you and where you want to go.
But I think that's true, though. You've got to have an openness, because I think sometimes when I speak to students as well, they're very narrowly focused on, I want to stay in academia or I want to move to industry. And it's like, no, you've got to try and make sure that you could do both if you have to. Yeah.
I mean, 3% of PhD students go into academia. That's a statistic. So I know it's a pretty hard statistic to imagine, but I just would want you to remember that as well. So if an opportunity comes up and it fits the right purpose, go for gold, essentially.
And I think as well, sorry, just one more thing. Don't be afraid to move back into academia either. I I think one of the things is like you get so narrow focused, but I think you always benefit from both. So I actually think you sometimes benefit from getting industry experience to move back into academia and vice versa. You kind of need to find this beautiful harmonization of both. Sorry, coming from someone that's not. Medhi, just on the sustainability point, I suppose, and how critical it is to the industry right now.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. We just came across between cement concrete. It was mid of the last year. Someone called me for our project in Singapore. Singapore, every 2 weeks they can get a new batch of cement, because they just get shipped into it. And they said for that specific project, I can't say because it's recording. It's kind of we have a client has a very hard target. So literally, there was a cement supplier in Europe. They want to put the cement into the bulk, ship Singapore goes to the project to be used as a concrete for that project. So I noticed is a kind of having that R&D hat on and say, okay, does that cement really gonna help the project or not? And at the same time, what does that cement mean for us for project we have in Brisbane? Like, we have all that in 2 years' time. So can I talk to that supplier, bring it here? Or once they have an R3, for example, we have the same supplier. We were working with that supplier in our London job. They use a low carbon aluminium. We said, okay, we need for this project. They said, no, it's not possible. So what we did, we unpacked our supplier here, and then we unpacked here and said, okay, let's go and buy from those companies. That's Russell is a Russian, but that was the before war. So literally we unpacked and packed it back together. So Vimonsatit R3 is one of the lowest carbon aluminium being used in Australia, which is 0.4 kilogram CO2 per kilogram. So what I'm saying is willing to take a challenge, a status quo, because we have to use to do it for 20 years this way. It doesn't mean we should do it tomorrow. So don't worry, take a challenge. You may fail. We fail R1 once they have a R1. We fail once they have a R2, but we did R3. Budget less than 100K for the package, which is 21 million. So it's not, it didn't cost us anything. We just challenge it. So yeah, just challenge.
Amazing. Well, on that note, then I suppose I would ask, what are your final words of wisdom to anyone that's coming up, young professionals, young academics? What would be your words of wisdom, Sorn?
Well, words of wisdom.
They don't have to be
I think-
wise, just words.
I can only think of one word. Be ready. Be ready. You never know, when you will need to the talent comes and you need to take it on. You never know when the opportunity comes. It may come and if you're not ready, you just let it pass, you just lose it. So be ready. What it means by be ready. So be also relevant to, what you aim for. We can self-taught or train or, whatever you can. So be realistic in terms of many of you are here for networking, also plan for your career after you finish your PhD. So you have your goals and expectations and all that kind of thing. So, and you can, bring yourself up to make sure that you get into the path that you want to walk. But at the same time, be ready and, be resilient in terms of if that path doesn't work. So, really look at other paths. It may work for you.
Dena? Final words?
Big thing, isn't it?
Mm.
There's
No
a few things
pressure.
that come to mind. Things are changing so rapidly. So we've had lots. I'm just thinking about government departments, restructures all the time. I think you need to be really adaptable. We talked about skills that would be great for moving into whatever role you were thinking about, but I think it also links to what you're saying. You actually need to be adaptable when things change quickly. You need to be able to move with that. And I think you move with it in a way, you move towards things that make you excited. For example, I'm really excited about the relationship between industry and academia, and that line between them that creates really interesting kinds of research that are driven by both sides. That's what made me really excited. But also, I'm very conscious that, especially in the higher education sector at the moment, you actually need to be adaptable. You need skills that cross lots of different areas. So I suppose that would be my final words.
Yeah, and that actually came up in the student session as well, that now recruiters aren't actually looking specifically for roles, they're actually creating roles around the skills that you possess. And I think that's really important. One of the top 3 that we talked about was adaptability.
Yeah.
Medhi.
Yeah, I can add words on myself. I never work for money. Work for what you like to do, the money come along with it. And if you don't like it, just leave the job. Do the other because you did what you like. So and yeah, that's kind of my never work for money.
Sorry. Okay, this common saying, but I tweet it a bit. Love what you do. If you can, I'm sorry. Do what you love. If you can't, love what you do.
Yeah. Emily.
Be resilient. I know this is really tough. My PhD it did actually break me for a while. I actually took 6 months to live in the Philippines because it broke me so much. So just keep your head above water. I know it's really hard, especially not knowing where you're going. You're applying for jobs and no one's responding back to you, and you get into a really dark moment very quickly. Just know you're not alone. I know it feels like it is, and it's very isolating. The numbers game. You just keep going. Talk to your mentors. Talk to some industry networks. See if someone can review your CV and whatnot. But essentially, just you got this. You're almost there. I think it's like 70% of PhD students quit in their last 6 months.
Yes. Oh.
So yeah, interesting, right? Yeah. It's a very high number. So you'll be almost there. You're almost there. I believe in you. If you need a little cheerleader, I'm more than happy to be your cheerleader.
I think there's a few in the room and they're probably at that point. So did the 70% keep going? No, but I think it's true. Resilience is one that we don't often talk about, but it's something that is a huge skill to have. And it actually isn't taught. It's something that's kind of learned through your experience. So the more experience, the better. I'm going to pass it over to the crowd now. Does anyone have any questions? Yes, the back straight up. Love it.
Sorry, my name's Carla Garofali. I'm part of the Concrete Institute, but I'm also a construction lawyer. So I started off as an engineer and then went to the dark side and became a lawyer. But as all of our guest speakers have been talking, I've had all these different thoughts. So one thing I just wanted to make an added observation was with communication, and there was this dichotomy between academia and industry. And there was this discussion about how industry doesn't communicate enough with academia and vice versa. I can remember at a previous Concrete Institute seminar, or a conference actually, that there was this discussion about the lack of communication between designers and contractors. Mm-hmm. So the people who are doing the work and the people who are designing it, and there's this disconnect. And so it's kind of very close to your concrete experience. So my father's Italian, so there's the old adage, my father taught me 3 things: prosciutto, salami, and concrete. But the understanding of what it takes to what the challenges are at the pointy end of delivering the concrete and placing the concrete and finishing the concrete compared to designing the concrete and having orders over. That's we can talk for days about that. But what I wanted to say was that within industry, there's the designers, you've got your contractors, you've got your suppliers, you've got all this admixture of people, you've got all these different levels that make up what you would call industry. So I guess the message to our PhD students is that don't think that industry is just one bubble. There's like 1,000 little sub bubbles within there, and everyone's got all their own little agendas and all their own little challenges as well. So talking about opportunities, all these opportunities are out there, and it's not what you know, it's who you know. But my parting observation, maybe this is an unkind one, when I was doing my engineering study, was we had a guest lecturer in design who was not a consultant, he wasn't actually an academic, and he said, you know what, you guys are so smart, you're stupid. And I guess my message there is that all kudos to all of your PhD students and devoting all that amount of attention to acquiring knowledge and studies. But a lot of people out in the industry don't have any regard to how many years you spent getting a degree. If you don't present them with something that's relevant to what they need, they don't care.
In a way, they understand.
Well, and a lot of these people don't have degrees. So my father hated the fact that I went to uni. He wanted me to be a bum.
Is that a similar story to Pete?
No, my back told me to go to uni.
Oh, yeah.
And my dad agreed.
Sorry, Carlo.
No. So look, when it comes to resilience, yes, definitely, and have that attitude of always saying yes. That's definitely true. If you don't at first succeed, try again. But the other point you made about communication is that Stephen Covey wrote the book about 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and one of them was seek first to understand and then be understood. So it's really, really important to understand the other person's needs, their requirements, and then you fashion your response to how you can solve their problem, be their Panadol for their headache. And if you can give them the confidence that you will provide them with that solution to their headache, then you're made for life.
Yeah. No, that's valid. And I think actually you're right. We probably narrowly focused it on industry and academia, but there's a whole ecosystem that we have to actually take into consideration and understand. Yeah. No, thank you. Claire.
Following on from what Carly just said, which was great, Dena, you're a hiring manager, and obviously you're going to be a sympathetic one because you have your own PhD. But can you tell me what's your knee-jerk reaction when you see an application come through for a job and that person has a PhD? So what's your immediate reaction? And then second question to that, how can someone present themselves when they have a PhD in a way that makes you think, wow, I really want to hire this person?
I don't have a knee-jerk reaction to PhDs. I have one, but the knee-jerk reaction is to pitching your proposal to someone or your application to someone when you don't know, when you're not actually responding to the needs of the business. Like if you're presenting, I've done this research and this is my PhD, and it's great to hear what people's PhDs are, but to be able to relate that to the needs of the business is not all, people don't always do that. I think that's the thing that is really off-putting. You just say, look, they're not really, they're thinking about their own relationship to research rather than how they might contribute to a really rich research culture within Sydney Water or any other industry, I think. And I think we talked about that, just really understanding what that business needs and how your academic research or your project management skills, because it is about project management skills, can contribute to that business in a way that's beneficial to them, not just for you. Yeah. And that's both in applications for jobs and proposals for research funding and investment. Yeah. Thanks. Good question.
I think Doug,
Yeah.
you had.
I'm Doug Jenkins. I'm with the Concrete Institute, and also I'm the chair of their standards committee, so involved in interaction between our members and committee groups. My question is, how do you think the standards procedures could be changed to make standards more friendly towards innovation? And also better interaction with industry tend to be very focused on academia and consultants. How can that be improved?
I can distribute the risk, because if we want to divert from the standard, we have to do a performance solution, and who is willing to take a risk? Because sometimes we want to do a certain. Actually, we have done it for one of the building. I can't say the name. Sorry. We try a new type of block work, and then no one willing to use that, like sign up for that. We had to knock all the wall down because no one happy to sign it, and wasn't that much cost magnitude of the project, but kind of how we can go beyond DTS to satisfy performance-based solution and distribute the risk.
Sack the lawyers.
I haven't. So working on site, it gets really tricky with standards where you're almost forced to use loopholes, to be completely honest. And obviously the loopholes aren't great because the standards are so clear. So I think actually conducting a survey to see what loopholes, because the loopholes we all use as well in construction, very, very, it's not the greatest, to be honest. I can't believe I'm saying this in this recording.
Don't worry, we can not
that
put
out.
this recording out.
Okay.
If you want to speak candidly and honestly, please do.
Because sometimes it limits you. The standards can limit you onto what you want to do or the necessity of the project. Actually, I won't mention that standard. But so you have to get smart and creative. And if you don't have the right people on site, which is actually quite often, it can go array quite quickly. So I think understanding the different environments that the standards are applied to actually really matter, and what kind of soil type and the environments that it's around, because you have a standard, but it applies to you legally, but you're looking at the site and you're looking at the drawing and you're like, this is way too overkill. I have to spend an extra $100,000 for a specialist to come out and do it. So I think doing a survey and conducting which standards are used the most, because we all use very similar standards in construction and in concrete, but I think that could actually help quite significantly.
I think so, Pete. I think Jason was first. I'm keeping an eye on who's you're next.
I suppose I was just going to make a comment to carry on from Carlos and the earlier discussion about, it's exactly right. There's a lot of different opportunities in industry. It's not just one job that you sort of go for now. And I'd encourage everyone who's doing PhDs to have a little bit of a broad look at it. And I'll say, I've now got my own business, but when I worked in the corporate sort of world, one of the larger concrete suppliers, the number of times where I bumped into people who, as I'm talking to them, and they might have had jobs that in the customer service center or concrete testing or something like that wasn't, highly academic. But as you're talking to me, this person is switched on. They know something, and a number of those people have moved on to, I'll say, much higher roles within different organisations. And I encourage people, sometimes a job is a job, and you can get in there. Doesn't stop you looking for your perfect job, but you might find your perfect job becomes available because you've gone in and you are answering phone calls, you are testing concrete.
And being in it.
I just encourage to get in there and give it a go, because you never know. And come to events like this. I'm in the Aussie Institute as well, and you're part of NEXGen. Come along to the Concrete Institute events, whether you're here or in the state events.
Shameless plug.
I love it.
There's one next Thursday up But and it's, as I know myself, I didn't have a PhD or anything, but just since I've left a nice, safe corporate sort of job, the contacts that I made over the years at Concrete Institute, Australian Society of Concrete Paving, CCAA, all the organisations, it's those contacts that have led to new opportunities that I've experienced, and you'll find the same. So by all means, get out there and give it a go.
Yeah, and I'm going to do another shameless plug, but obviously the NEXGen community is like, you are sitting now with industry straight up, and as Jason said, attend the CIA events. We have a podcast with brilliant speakers who are in this room that we've had on. Absorb everything, take everything. You've got so many resources available to jump in, and I agree with you, Jason. Just get amongst it, get in and get involved, and it's like the best community, as I said, so don't be scared. Thanks, Jason. Was that your final comment?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry. Pete.
I've got a question for Emily, and it's a little bit off topic, but I think that you brought it up.
Love it. Can I just
Not about
make
the loopholes though.
context? Pete started where you started, similar.
Yeah, so my question is, at what point in your career did you realise that we can't, I'm going to be a bit presumptuous here, at what point in your career did you realise that we can't add water to the concrete truck on site? And then secondly, how did you convince your dad that he can't piss it up?
I haven't convinced him. No, he knows. No matter what conversation we have, he knows a lot more than me. And it's a hard learning. But okay, there's a story, because there's a story with this as well. So the story was we were doing a block fill job, and we had to have a dual feed. So if you don't know what that is, it's where you have to have 2 concrete pumps pumping because it's a massive slab or whatever it is. And so because all of our pumps were a bit busy, we had to call another person to come in. And this was not a friend, but essentially like a friend of a friend. And so we bought in the concrete truck. And he
Is that a loophole, by the way?
No.
Like,
No,
a friend?
this is a bit of a friend of a friend. And we ordered block fill, and it came in about 20 slop. And so they're adding water, a lot of water, and it's just not going. And we didn't know these people, but it got to the point where they started to get really aggressive. So they actually got the concrete out of the truck and started throwing it at the driver. Yeah, that was pretty bad. Yeah, it was because the driver was putting in water, and it was not happening, and it just went really, really badly. A lot of the times as well, when you're on site and they're pouring concrete, you can kind of tell straight away if it's going to crack or not, or if you should add water then and when to stop, or else you have someone that's quite new on site, maybe from a PhD student who's there for the first time, like, oh, just add some water, you'll be fine. You're like, you can't do that. You can't do that. Oh my God. It's way past the time. But I've also known, I'm from Queensland, but Sydney don't use a lot of retardants. I don't know why. Is that still the case? But I think retardants help quite a lot. But yes, as much as I love concrete on site, I'm glad not to be getting phone calls at like 2 a.m. being like, we've hit gas, something's gone array, the traffic guys have left, they went out for lunch, now we have a block up. So yeah, I like academia for that reason, to be honest. But I don't forget my roots. I mean, concrete is I'd like to say it's almost in my blood. You still smell it on your fingertips and houses, and on a concrete pump, it's another story. If you get the chance to work at a concrete pump, I do really recommend. Just say no to spreading and holding the hose as well. Just maybe put in the clips and you'll be fine.
So everyone should go and do a day on site.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Liam.
Yes, hi there. Liam Martin from University of Technology, Sydney. This is more of a volunteering question. I'm an Australian citizen, but I work with PhDs from all around the world, and they've come here from Australia. So asking Sorn and Medhi, and maybe Emily and Dena can also talk to this, of the experience of being somebody who did not grow up in Australia or doesn't have those family connections, to come over and work in industry and in academia, still like traveling around and having those links, but Australia is different from the rest of the world, as is everywhere else to here. So maybe this is pointed towards Sorn and Medhi. What recommendations can you say for a PhD student who didn't grow up here in Australia, who still has ties back in family and home, if they want to stay here in Australia and have a career in concrete and construction?
Yeah, okay, welcome. Welcome. And then, I always told this to my students, make the most of it, when you're here. And then, whatever you do, you can do all the plan you want. You can, you want to, go somewhere, you plan accordingly. But nobody knows for sure what you're going to end up with. So that's why make the most of what you're doing and the time that you have, according to what you can afford, what you can manage, you know what I mean? And then when it comes to different industry perspective from country to country, I agree. Especially if you already have some industry experience elsewhere, you coming to Australia, don't think that you know everything yet. You know what I mean? Because you need to also, as we talk a lot about communication, you need to understand the local context. You need to understand the requirements. You need to understand the way things work here, and then don't think that you know everything. Always be willing to learn from the locals, from the experienced people, and then and then bring your own expertise or your own experience elsewhere and see how we can do things together. So that's what I'm gonna say. It's not impossible. It's good because you have a broad kind of experience from overseas to the local industry. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, my personal opinion is in Australia there is a statistically high rate of trust. Most of my job, I was interviewed. Funny, I was on my bike, I was doing a tour across Europe. I just reached Istanbul, I was very exhausted, I had an interview. Like literally, I was asked where are you? So I'm in Istanbul. So when you come back to Australia, so I don't know. Okay, cool. And the other question, but the trust. So do try not to compromise that trust. That's a very important. The second thing is again, give whatever you got. When I moved to Australia back 2011, I became a volunteer math and physics tutor at the youth service. To be honest, it was a kid about less than 12, like class 12 before HSC. Literally, we had to do IELTS. IELTS like 8, we had to like, I read the question, it's like, oh, and my physics was good, but I didn't understand. The kid helped me to understand the question. I helped them to how to solve the question. It's like, so they helped me, I helped them, but that job helped me to find another job at the university to become tutor. University job helped me to find a job as a one consultancy. So again, all come across all similarities, trust, and also just share whatever who you are, and do not afraid. So, and also always I was told like, oh, Medhi, if we don't have a PR or if we are not citizen, do we get a job? I would say yes, you would. This company, I thought, oh no, if you don't have a PR, no, actually they do. They offer a job if you have it, but as long as you can work legally, you can get a job. So don't say, oh, okay, I don't have a visa, I can't. No, you can't. Just be yourself and just apply for it.
I think what I love about, and sorry, we're going to go for break very shortly. Well, we're going to conclude very shortly. I think what I love about what you talk about, Medhi, is sometimes in life we get so caught up on the achievements and what are the next stages, but you actually have to learn. You have to love what you're learning always, and you're learning because you love it, and you're always like. And education isn't just informal education. Education is seeing the world, taking an interview on a bike in Europe. So I think that's key. I think we get so caught up in the career achievement and trying to move forward, but I think actually life is to be lived and we should be doing the things that we love. Yeah. On that note, I know there was a couple more questions, but I think you can ask the panelists in our networking session because it is past 5 o'clock. So I want everyone to be able to eat and have a drink. So can we just all give a big round of applause for the panel? And just one more round of applause for Lendlease and Medhi for hosting.